Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Amplify with Adam. I got to say, this one I am very, very excited about. We have Ralph and Dan here from Machining with Meaning. And like I said, I'm very, very excited about this interview. We'll get into why in just a second because I think you guys are doing some really cool things. But first, I'd love for you guys to introduce yourselves and just tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Okay, I'll start. So my name is Dan Azari, and we started Machining with Meaning last year, my good friend Ralph and I. And basically what we decided to do is turn our passion for machining and making into a way to give back to society. Because we had a mutual friend who went through a terrible bout of cancer. So we decided to form a charitable organization or corporation where we would do machining jobs and then donate proceeds to pancreatic cancer research.
That is amazing. And again, kind of the reason I'm really excited. Yeah, Ralph, can you give me a little introduction to yourself and also fill in that, and we can talk about, I want to hear about how a year ago, what that start looked like, but Ralph.
Sure. As a quick introduction, I'm the guy that hangs around the shop and bothers Dan while he's doing the real work. And I'm always tugging on his shirt, trying to get some machine time from him. But I'm fairly new to the whole machining concept. I've done a lot of work with 3D modeling and 3D printing, and I'm a software guy by profession. And just over the last year or so, working with Dan, have really become very passionate about the whole machining process. So that's me.
That's fantastic. So a year ago, you decided to start Machining with Meaning, and what did that look like? Did you guys already have the machines and you just formed the corporation, or were you going through and saying, hey, we actually need to find a space and buy machines, and what did that first couple of days look like?
Well, yeah, so it was a more gradual evolution than that. I purchased my first hobby grade machine. It was a Tormach with my brother about maybe 6-7 years ago. And that machine was sitting in his garage, and with a couple other, older manual machines that we had. And it was, something that we said, let's buy this and, maybe we can make some cool things. And, I suppose like a lot of people, you start doing it and then you really appreciate, number one, how cool it is, but also how hard it is to do a good job. And, you just want to do more and more and get better and better at it. So I got to the point where, I could, on that machine some decent things. And then about 3 years ago, our friend, a mutual friend, Ras, mine, got diagnosed with cancer. And it kind of dovetailed into me getting to the machining, and I had moved the equipment into my garage and started building up, a decent job shop capabilities wise, and started doing some sort of real projects where I was making some money through some connections I had, making some parts here and there for a telescope manufacturer. And then about the same time, I made a couple of gizmos for my friend, and he was really into it and started spending some more time. And the idea just occurred to me one day, why don't we, convert this hobby, little side thing, and do it a little bit more in earnest and use it as a way to also give back by just donating any proceeds we generate to a foundation, pancreatic cancer. What is it, Ralph?
I think I've got it.
Yeah.
PanCan.
Yeah.
Yeah, what we believed in. So I decided to, or we decided to go that direction. And at the same time, I felt that I was sort of outgrowing the Tormac. So I purchased my first real CNC, and I used CNC lathe.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was a Brother Speedio, and then I also got an old Mazak CNC lathe to kind of learn on. That was my first CNC lathe, and then eventually ended up selling that lathe and buying a new CNC lathe as well. So we have decent equipment set up in our garage with really no places to store anything else. We kind of crammed it full, about as full as we could get.
Yeah.
And started doing more and more work and getting better and better at it, to the point where I felt I was qualified to, do work and generate an income from it, or, charge some money.
Yeah.
Meet the specs. And so I feel I'm at that place now where I'm confident in the abilities of the equipment and myself. And then Ralph has been getting into it now. He's caught the bug and he's learning, and he's getting quite good at it.
Yeah, Ralph. So when were you kind of around Dan when he was getting his first machine, or did you join a little later? What's been your introduction to the machining world?
So I met Dan through our mutual friend, Steve. And this was just before Steve was, just right after he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And I do remember visiting him at one point, and he showed me the old Tarmac and what he was building on that. And I was just kind of blown away that you could actually, take an idea using, Fusion 360 or whatever 3D modeling software you have and produce an actual part. I had been doing that with 3D printers, and it's certainly a lot easier. The additive process is a lot easier than the subtractive. So, when I actually saw pieces that are metal that are actually functional, and I was kind of really hooked at that point.
That's amazing. And I think that's a consistent story, right? It's you talked about catching the bug. Once you get into it and you start doing it, it's such an incredible process to see a hunk of metal turn into a part that's functional, like you said, and can be designed at such specificity. It's really, really, really powerful moment. So now that we're a year later,
right?
I looked at your website, and I've got it up right here. It looks, first of all, incredible site, but there's a couple things that caught my eye, right? Like you guys said, you're a little bit better than the bigger shops at some of the short run stuff. And when you had a quote, there was also talk about engaging with like a lead engineer. What does that look like? Is it just you two as is that your team? Like Dan, are you kind of doing some of the short run stuff? Ralph, are you engaging as the lead engineer and some of the quote feedback? Like, you guys have some amazing capabilities, and I'd love for you guys to tell me a little bit about them.
Dan does it all. He's amazing. I don't think he sleeps, actually. He's got a full-time job, as do I. And he's in his garage when he's not working, and he's just making, constantly making parts. It's pretty phenomenal to watch.
And what do you guys, where are you getting, like what industry are you focused on, or are you getting, jobs from a ton of different industries? You were talking about the telescope manufacturer. Are you still working with them, or I know there's a lot of aerospace in Florida. What does that look like as far as your industry focus?
So part of the impetus for me getting into this and sort of taking it the next step forward and purchasing better equipment was work I was getting through an old contact I had, who is a telescope manufacturer. So he just came to me and said, "Hey, I got this part. It's just a one-off, and my local machine guy doesn't want to do it. Can you do this for me?" Because I had mentioned to him I got some machinery. I said, "Sure, no problem." So next thing you know, I have another part, and then I'm doing a run of 200 parts and this, that, and the other. So up until until Xometry, we had only been doing work for him, plus some odds and ends for friends and things like that. But that was our only means of generating income. And that was because we did not want to overextend ourselves.
Yeah.
We wanted to start off slowly enough that, you know, if we took a job, we knew we could complete it, you know, but both in terms of meeting the specs and the time, and just to get some more experience. And then when, you know, we reach that stage where, like I mentioned, we have the confidence to, you know, we know what our capabilities are. And so I looked at Xometry because I figured it would be a perfect match in that there's always jobs available. I could, you know, look what the job is, what the timeline is, and I could pick and choose what we can do comfortably, and, you know, and produce a good product within the timeline.
Yeah, it seems like, you know, two things. One, your attention to the customer, right? Making sure that you can meet their needs and their timeline. That is very important, and you know, I think should be underlined for anybody thinking about getting into this space. But then two, that there's this almost like constant education path for you guys as well, right? Like
Yes.
you're taking jobs and slowly starting to expand them so that you can continue learning. Is that true? Is that you know, kind of a major focus for you?
Yeah, at this stage in the game, you know, we are on our own, in that we don't have a mentor that we could directly ask questions to. You know, we're not in a bigger shop, and we can't act as an apprentice. But there, you know, the internet is a wealth of knowledge, and you can learn practically anything you want to learn from the internet. But there's no substitute for experience. So so what I've been doing is slowly but surely pushing the boundaries of what I've done in the past. So yeah, now I know how to do this feature, and I'm confident I can meet the tolerances and this, that, and the other, or, you know, getting more familiar with different tooling that's out there that may be more appropriate for certain jobs. It's like with everything, experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you talk about the internet, man. So many folks seem to graduate from like YouTube Academy, right? Where they basically are on YouTube, just hitting refresh on the next video, learning what's going on there. And there's so many different folks giving back to the industry by putting that type of content on there. I think it's really powerful.
It's great. It really is. Yeah.
So as you just recently joined Xometry and you're starting to take work, you know, when we look towards the future for machining with meaning, what does that look like for you guys? I mean, it sounds like you're in a tight garage right now, or are you guys looking at potentially, you know, getting a space and growing capabilities, or are you looking at more so, you know, adding just to your repertoire of knowledge and focusing on that? What does it look like as we move forward towards the future?
Oh, well, that's a good question. And who knows? We will continue to do what we can do with the equipment and the space that we have, you know, add some more equipment, some smaller pieces of equipment should we need to, if we feel we really need the need. But in terms of expanding it, you know, just keeping in mind that it's not a true business, and that we're not supporting our families with it, and we don't want to make it grow to the point where it becomes a burden. I would think that the path to growth would be bringing on like-minded shops who want to donate their time towards this cause. Is, you know, sort of in the back of my head of this, you know, if enough people feel the same way, you know, they could always probably the easiest path to growth in terms of generating more and more proceeds for cancer research would be to have other machinists sort of join in.
Yeah, and we'll be sure, you know, when we post this video, we'll be sure to link your contact information below so that if folks are interested, they can reach out to you and talk about, you know, what that looks like, what that process would look like.
Yeah. So I'll explain to you, sort of give you an overview of how we operate.
Yeah.
So when we first started, we did get some contributions from sort of corporate sponsors for things, like coolant and tooling and everything it takes to run a shop. All the equipment was donated by me and Ralph, and the space, obviously, electricity, and the labor. So all that, none of that gets deducted from the jobs, from the as an expense. So we provide all that. When we take a job, we simply take the net the gross proceeds from the job, subtract whatever the hard material costs were, and take the net of that, and that's what gets donated. Everything else gets donated.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, we require, sort of some funding just for operations. And then, materials easy because this is part of the job. Of course, this excess material gets used for fixturing, this, that, and other. That's also it ends up getting expensed. So we donate, more than what our profits would be if we were operating as a business.
Well, like I said, I think it's such a powerful message and such a powerful action that you guys are taking. Not only message, but the action you're taking. Now, one thing that caught me on your site in your FAQs, and Ralph, I don't know if you wrote these or had a hand in them, but one of your FAQs is, what's the meaning of life? And I chuckled at the answer. So do you know the answer off the top of your head from your website?
I think it was
what is the meaning of life?
Yeah, it was a two-part answer. I think it was to give back, and then also 42.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you explain the 42 a little bit for me?
Well, it's from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a really fun book, and just a little bit of humor added to the website.
I love it. Yeah, no, I caught the Hitchhiker Guide reference, but wanted to explain that for anybody that didn't. I was, like I said, I was doing a little research, and I actually chuckled out loud when I saw that. I thought it was fantastic.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah. So
there are nerds among us.
Yeah. So one thing we always talk about on the show is, you guys have clearly learned some lessons over the last year of doing this, but also, multiple years of prior to doing Machining with Meaning. If you were talking to someone that was interested in getting in the space, and it looks like I'm having some connectivity issues, so we might have some pauses and starts to the video with the thunderstorm going on. But you're talking to someone that's interested in getting in the space, maybe starting their own machine shop. You talked about how you guys maybe haven't had the benefit of having a mentor. Well, that's one of the things that we want to focus on here is, what are some lessons learned or some things that you would focus on as you were starting a shop or really getting into the space? Ralph, I'll start with you because I feel like you're learning from Dan a little bit right now, so there might be some things top of mind.
Yeah, I'm certainly benefiting from having the time and from Dan to learn a lot from him. Again, as I mentioned earlier, and hats off to those who do this for a living. It's a really tough job, not physically, but just the, it's mentally challenging. I'm always blown away by how much thought and work goes into just the setup of a job, and again, I'm used to my 3D printer where I just kind of press the button and it all comes out. But with this, it's, really kind of spending a lot of time thinking about how you're going to hold that piece and maybe what the best sort of approach is to cut it. Dan kind of, obviously I'm learning directly from him, but, you mentioned YouTube Academy, that's helped quite a bit as well. Believe it or not, he sent me quite a few videos that, just kind of helped me understand tool paths and how all of that works. So, there's no shortcuts, right? It takes time to learn this stuff. And I'm very much a novice at this. Dan is, amazing at what he knows and what he can do with that machine. So, you know, if I guess if there's any advice is just kind of put the time in, read a lot, watch a lot, and see if you can find somebody like Dan Azari in your neighborhood.
I love it. Dan, what about you? You know, what's some piece of advice that you pass along to folks interested in getting into the industry?
Well, try to get experience from before you make a big investment, you know, if you can, and you have the ability to, you know, work with someone to get some experience so you have a better full understanding what's involved before you make a capital investment. But and kind of start small. I mean, it's sort of what happened with me, and probably a lot of guys who do this is, you know, you start with used or, you know, hobbyist grade machinery, and you learn and you make mistakes. You crash a Tormac, no big deal, you know. Not much is going to happen.
Yeah.
And at least, you know, that worked for me. Is sort of, I grew into it, and the machining just sucked me along. And then I knew when, you know, I started having thoughts, you know, I really need to get a better piece of equipment, or I tried to do this, and gosh darn it, you know, if I had a better piece of equipment, I know it would have come out much better. Or you start looking, okay, am I going to do a 200,000 piece job? You know, where, you know, if I have to change tools, my machine, it's really going to drive me crazy.
Yeah.
You know, so you just have to sort of reach a point where, I guess, where you get confidence in your own ability. You know, that it makes sense to make more investment.
Yeah, you almost let your confidence in your ability reach, and then your frustration with the current equipment, right? And once you reach that ceiling, that's when
Exactly.
you start looking at the next equipment and the next piece.
No, it's interesting. So my first CNC lathe was a very capable. It was a Mazak QT20 from 1995, and it was a very capable lathe. That, you know, kind of scary thing to run. You know, a machine of that much, you know, that had a lot of power compared to what I had been using anything before. But it was limited in its software. It was just Mazatron, you know, and you know, it actually made pretty good parts. But even with that piece of equipment, since I only had room for one lathe, I decided, you know, I had my experience getting a new vertical mill, and, you know, it was such a pleasant experience, and it's really nice having a new machine, that I sort of ended up doing the same thing with the lathe too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really good advice. Is, you know, a lot of folks want to jump head first, right? But making sure that you're building those building blocks so that you've got a really strong foundation. And then once you kind of caught the bug, right? That's when you can really, you know, ramp up the learning and then potentially invest. And yeah, guys, I'll tell you what, I have so enjoyed hearing the story of Machining with Meaning, and you guys, your time today has been fantastic. You know, just want to give a shout out to you guys for coming on the show and give us a little time, and would love to have you back on in the future as you continue this journey, because I've really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Adam. I would like to add just one sort of final
Please.
thought. Yeah, because and Dan had said this before, and I thought it was a good message, is that, you know, we are a nonprofit. We're a 501c3. We are not here to try to take jobs away from the people that do this for a living. You know, we're here to take on those little, you know, short runs. If you know, if it's a small job that maybe doesn't make sense for someone, you know, send it our way. You know, if you're thinking about offshoring it, send it our way. You know, we can do it for very low cost, because again, we're not trying to, we're not supporting, you know, a team of people that are doing this. So, you know, we're doing this because we have a passion for it, and because we want to support an organization that really helped out our friend, you know, and I feel like it's really important to kind of give that back.
And I think that is that's so fantastic to underline, right? And not only do I stand in awe of your commitment to and again we'll post this link, but it's pancan.org and your mission there. But I think that's really important to underline as well, and will be a great message for our audience, because we've got a lot of shops that watch that could potentially work with you guys in the future if it's something that they're not willing or not kind of interested in taking on, but would love to send your guys' way. So I thank you for underlining that. That's a great message. Awesome. Well, guys,
message.
Yeah. Dan's words, your mouth, man.
Yeah.
Well, guys, again, thank you so much for coming on, and would love to talk again in the future. We'll post some of the links we've talked about in the comments below, but really enjoyed having you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep. And tune in next week for another episode of Amplify with Adam. Thank you, guys.